Hello friends, welcome to my little corner on the interwebs. If you're new here, my name is Kathlina and I'm autistic with a heavy dash of ADHD. Now that I know a little bit more about how my brain works, there are a lot of autistic traits that I really like and appreciate and embrace. And there are a few that are a little bit more challenging and difficult to manage, especially in a world that is in many ways built for neurotypical people. So in today's video, I want to talk about the autistic traits that can be a little bit more challenging for me in my day-to-day life. So the first one that I want to talk about has been both a positive and a negative for me personally, and that would be sensory processing differences. It is well known that individuals on the spectrum can experience heightened senses and can become overwhelmed by experiences that neurotypical people are able to process with ease. Unexpected loud noises, pungent smells or tastes, brightly lit stores, clothing that is itchy and uncomfortable, those things can truly feel unbearable. It's believed that these differences could be caused by differences in the way that the brain processes and receives messages that come through our senses. For me, I struggle with smells, sound, clothing textures or being touched in certain ways, and light. When I'm in a grocery store, I avoid the candle and cleaning aisle like the plague. Walking even past those aisles, I get physically ill from the smells. I end up feeling nauseous and get a headache, and sometimes it also triggers anxiety, so I just avoid those aisles at all costs. Early on in mine and my husband's relationship, I had to ask him to stop wearing his cologne because it made me sick. I personally can't wear perfumes. I can't wash my clothing in scented laundry detergent. I'm also highly sensitive with my hearing. Unexpected loud noises like sirens or yard work or construction can be very startling and feel physically painful. Simple things like just having the TV one notch louder than my comfort level is not acceptable. Another thing that I have experienced very, very early on in my life and throughout my entire life is that I get a crackling in my ear at certain frequencies. So certain sound frequencies actually cause almost like a static crackling sound in my ears, and it's really uncomfortable, and when I'm experiencing that, makes it very difficult to focus on really anything else until that sensation stops. Anytime I go to a movie or a concert or anything where there's loud noises, for me to actually enjoy myself somewhat, I have to wear earplugs, and if I don't, I'm uncomfortable and my ears take almost the rest of the night to be able to kind of recover and hear the way that I did before whatever event it was. These differences in the way that I hear can also make it really, really distracting to focus on a conversation that I'm having in a public space because I have difficulty filtering out any of the other background noise. So when somebody's talking to me, my brain processes, the dishes clanking in the kitchen, they process the car that just sped by, they process the baby crying in the background, all at the same level as the conversation that I'm having with an individual, and I can't focus. I actually can't hear what they are saying to me, even though they might be sitting right next to me. Silence also doesn't exist for me. When I'm laying in bed with my husband and he maybe will say, oh, it's so quiet, or, it's nice to be in silence, I've never experienced silence, because even when it's the dead of night and everybody's sleeping and it's supposed to be quiet, I can still hear the buzzing of the appliances, and I can still hear a car closing their door 3 blocks down. Like I can still hear all of those things. There really is no such thing as silence for me. I'm also really sensitive to certain clothing. I will say not as much in the way of like I can't wear them at all. Like this shirt, for instance, I absolutely hate this like elastic thing, but I'm only going to be wearing it for a couple of hours, and I can tolerate that because I think it looks cute. But if I have to wear anything beyond, just an hour or two and it's really uncomfortable, it's very distracting for me and it's just not worth it at all. If it's itchy, I will scratch and end up kind of like destroying my skin because it's just that uncomfortable. The last sensory experience that I have dealt with that can be challenging is lighting. I'm very, very sensitive to lighting. Walking into a store that is lit with fluorescent bulbs can often make me dizzy. Also, like strobe lights, oh my god, going to a club and having strobe lights or, all of the flashing lights, I had no idea. I could not comprehend how people enjoyed being in those environments because it gave me, I felt like I was gonna faint. I would get really, really dizzy and I couldn't tolerate it. The only times that I have been able to tolerate that somewhat is if maybe I was drinking, but even then it was not enjoyable for me. So the next autistic trait that has been a little bit of a struggle for me has been social challenges. From the outside, I think that a lot of people that have met me would think that I'm fairly social, but that is only because I've learned to mask my discomfort and confusion really, really well. In reality, I'm constantly thinking about what to say next, what to do with my body when I'm in a conversation, how much eye contact to make, trying to read and understand unspoken social cues, all while trying to carry on a conversation. It's exhausting. I have to hype myself up to spend time with people, even people that I thoroughly enjoy being around. And typically social encounters usually come with the price of having to recover for a full day and sometimes longer. I have a few friends that I love dearly and they know me and they love and accept me, but making and keeping friends has been a lifelong struggle for me. With female friendships, there are certain expectations that I just can't meet. I hate talking on the phone. I feel like small talk is mundane and boring. I often need recovery time, which has sometimes looked like me dropping off the face of the planet for a couple of months. And people that don't know me don't like that and have sometimes taken it personally. My best friend, who has known me for over half of my life, is a very touchy-feely individual and has had to accept that I'm just not. Now that she knows that I'm autistic, I do think that that part of me and that element makes a little bit more sense. Social difficulties, for me at least, shouldn't be mistaken with lack of interest. I love spending one-on-one time with people that I care about and getting lost in deep conversation. I'm just not the person to call to talk about what you had for lunch. The last thing that I will say on female friendships that I've struggled with, and that's this feeling of underlying cattiness, competition, and gossip. I've never understood it, and personally I have experienced it from other women, and I just can't get on board. In female friendships, gossip is often seen as a way to bond. But for me, the way that I've always thought about it is that if somebody can talk that way about an individual and then act completely different in front of them, what is being said about me when I'm not around? And it completely eliminates any sense of trust that I may have built. So the last autistic trait that I really struggle with would be difficulties with executive functioning. This is an area that I have felt so much shame around and was really the catalyst for me to figure out why I was failing at things that seemed so easy for everybody else. Executive function is known as the management system in the brain and deals with things like goal setting, motivation, organization, and prioritizing. This can impact people's lives in a ton of different ways. For me, it shows up across the board all over. When I was in school, every single assignment did not get started until the night before. Everything was always procrastinated, even projects that I was excited about and I wanted to work on. As an adult, doing a task like cleaning the kitchen can take me 4 times longer than the average person because I'd get distracted, forget what I was doing, remember that I forgot something but can't remember what, remember, resume task. This can happen multiple times throughout one chore. My working memory is the most frustrating part of my brain. My thoughts and ideas come as quickly as they go. Multiple times a day I have to backtrack to try to remember a previous thought. Sometimes I can remember and sometimes I can't. Following through with everyday tasks like paying the bills or keeping up with the house or feeding myself or following multi-step instructions is a constant battle for me. This also impacts my relationships because, say for instance, my husband asks me to do something and I say, yeah, I'll take care of that, and wholeheartedly mean and plan and have the intention of finishing and taking care of that task. And then inevitably it just disappears from my brain. This can come off as me not caring about other people or taking other people's needs into consideration, but it couldn't be further from the truth. I've implemented new routines more times than I can count, but the minute that that routine gets disrupted by a change of schedule or a holiday, it's nearly impossible for me to be able to find my way back. Executive functioning challenges is also really expensive and super damaging to your credit score. Forgetting to pay a bill leads to fees. Forgetting to check your bank account before making an impulsive buy leads to overdraft fees. Thinking that your car payment is on auto pay when it's not, and then having it repossessed. As I've gotten older, I've gotten a lot better at avoiding the big oops, but I'm still recovering from mistakes that I made 8 years ago. After learning more about the way that executive functioning is impacted by autism and ADHD, I've started making changes to set myself up better. We bought a robot vacuum and mop. Took some time to ensure that anything that could be on auto pay was, and hiring help for things like yard work. The small changes really have made my day-to-day life feel significantly more manageable. I'd love to know if you were able to relate to any of my struggles or areas that have been difficult for you. Let me know in the comments below and let's start a dialogue. Be kind to yourself, and I will see you in the next video.